Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Aisha with Minara Counseling. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about developing an open, curious mind. Whenever I work with women who share they want to be better in life, maybe as a mom, as a daughter, as a wife, sister, friend, neighbor, maybe in her level of spirituality, they usually say something like, I want to be better, but dot, dot, dot. And following that but would be many different reasons why she's struggling with becoming better. So the good news is that there is some amount of desire present in her, enough so she is trying to make a difference. She is trying to change. So we're going to call that talab. Talab is intention and desire and action together. And it is very, very beautiful in a person. And it is one of the first things that has to be present before anything else can follow. The issue is that there is a bit of talab, but it waxes and wanes because when the spark of talab ignites, there is no real, consistent, and persistent follow through. And then she has to wait again for that to reunite. And then that keeps happening again and again and again. And this can take a toll on him, creating a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, and maybe feeling like a failure. So whenever the spark of talab comes, there has to be something else that comes up that's shutting it down. Okay. Usually that's something like self-sabotage, which in my opinion is very protective in nature. There is a big reason why the brain, the heart, the mind, the soul, all are saying, no, we are not doing this. There's some sort of fear or some sort of unrest in that person's mind that's causing them to be rigid and lacking flexibility. Rigidity, by the way, is our way of self-preserving, protecting ourselves from things that we're afraid might happen. And we do need it. However, when it starts ruling us or when it starts being the boss of us and taking over, it becomes a problem. There could be other reasons for sure, but in my experience, this is what I see most. So whenever we say we want a good and better life, we need to understand what a good and better life is. We need to start learning about what Allah's definition of a good and better life is, right? But we have to be brave in order to explore that, to be vulnerable, okay? And in order to melt the resistance and become better guided, we have to let go of the idea that we know best. And usually when I ask people, who do you think knows better, us or Allah? They always say Allah, but actions are not saying the same message as our brain. Okay. And as long as we think that we know best on some level, either in words and or actions, we cannot grow. And in fact, the opposite might happen and we might become worse off. And that is resistance. That is rejection. And that is arrogance. And so we need to be willing to open our minds and get curious about what's blocking us from being brave and pushing through and being consistent, being afraid and braving it anyways. Okay, we need to be willing to make discoveries about where our beliefs and actions came from anyways. It reminds me of that ayah from Surah Baqarah, verse 170. When it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they reply, no, we only follow what we found our forefathers practicing. Would they still do so even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? That sends a big message. So we have to be willing to get curious and open our hearts and our minds to the reality that Allah knows what we know not. Now, as a part of our podcast, we have journal reflections to sort of encourage us, to sort of help us along the way. And the first one is, what mental habits are no longer serving you? Do you have a habit of negative self-talk, bringing out the inner critic? Maybe you shy away from certain thoughts and feelings, people, places, and things. So what's going on in your mind? Number two, identify three things you'd like to change from among your mental habits. And number three, write down a statement about why you'd like to change those habits. Whenever we make a big enough why, the how to will start coming. But for today, we're just focusing on exploring, being brave, being afraid, and braving it anyway. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us wisdom and the ability to open our hearts so that it may receive guidance. Ameen.